It was the fifth family gathering I'd missed in a year. A cousin's birthday this time. I found out not through an invitation, but through an offhand comment from someone who assumed I'd been there. They spoke about it like it was yesterday's news. "You always know best, don't you?" My mother, Linda, had said more than once during those few conversations we shared. It echoed back to me like a hauntingly familiar lullaby meant to soothe, but instead it disturbed. My phone buzzed with a notification, pulling me into a digital album of smiling faces and a cake I had contributed to but didn't taste. $52 for a cake I never even saw in person. Welcome back to Quiet Revenge Chronicles, the channel where quiet people finally close the account. If this story resonates, leave a comment and subscribe for more. Let me take you back to how it all unfolded. You see, I had just started questioning why my name was seemingly crossed out from the guest list, while everyone else was blissfully unaware. It was a specific kind of isolation, one orchestrated by someone who always seemed to know better. What I didn't know yet was the extent of her reach and how intricately she controlled the narrative of my life. I wasn't always the outsider looking in. Before the strange isolation began, I was deeply woven into the fabric of our family. My mother, Linda, and I had a close relationship, or so I thought. As a single elementary school teacher in a small town, family meant everything to me. The tight-knit gatherings, weekends spent at the family-owned restaurant, and laughter echoed in our shared history. My mother had been the linchpin, rallying us all together, and that was something I admired about her. Growing up, Linda was the one who instilled in me the value of connections. She always said, "Family is who you make time for." It was a mantra that I took to heart. So, it wasn't just my absence from the gatherings that bothered me. It was the growing realization that the time I thought we were making for each other had begun to slip through my fingers without explanation. Those early family memories sparkled with the innocence of childhood. I remember the scent of sizzling barbecue, the sun setting over our backyard, and cousins running around with sparklers in their hands. I remember feeling loved, surrounded, and safe. My bond with my mother seemed unbreakable then. She was a strong, commanding presence who managed family affairs with an assured grace. It was a trait I had always revered, even tried to emulate. But as I began my career as a teacher, moved out on my own, and grew into my own person, things subtly shifted. I wanted to host events at my place, take turns making the weekend stock in the familial potluck, and share some decisions. Linda dismissed the idea, always reasoning that the family restaurant was more convenient, more central. "You always know best, don't you?" she'd sigh, half joking, when I'd make suggestions over where to hold Easter or how to celebrate Nana's birthday. The phrase tickled my mind, an innocuous note that over time grew sharp and unyielding. Her voice wielded subtle authority, undermining without outright rejection. She encouraged her path, her way, her control. It was only when I began noticing the missing invitations that I realized something had shifted beyond the bounds of what was intended. The excuses started small, whispered negligently amidst other topics. "Oh, I thought you couldn't make it. Didn't you have a school event? I was sure you were working late again." Meanwhile, my students saw me there, in the classroom, during school hours, present and accounted for. An improbable contradiction, flickering shadows between my whereabouts and Linda's given reasons. Linda and I had what appeared to be the same close relationship on the surface. She was still the manager of the family affairs, the heartbeat of our gatherings. But beneath, a quiet disconnect had taken root. It was like watching a well-rehearsed play where my lines had been edited out without my knowledge. It became routine, me reaching out to check on the next family brunch or the Saturday barbecue, only to find out plans had shifted, the location changed at the last moment, or my presence was assumed, and thus no explicit invitation was made. Subtle erasures of my involvement, a thread of intentionality beginning to splice together. My cousin, Alex, had noticed my absences as well. "You missed another one," he'd text, signed with a winking emoji, casual on the surface, but concerned beneath. I didn't want to burden him with my suspicions, not yet, as they still silhouetted under conjecture. It remained a niggling doubt on its own, an unwoven end on its own cloak of family unity. The whispers settled into a certainty that made home feel like less than it used to be. Yet, Through the heartache, my role at school continued to be a balm, the children providing a consistent tapestry of joy that dulled any familial ruptures. They were unaware of my tarnished holiday photos and faded family ties. How long had it been since trust and warmth fleeted beneath bare familial niceties? How long did she plan those omissions, decisions so seemingly small, framing a larger betrayal? How long until I pulled the thread that would unravel the truth lurking beneath our delicately woven facade? The first real crack appeared at a family wedding, a grand celebration that was, to me, just another story told postscript. Karen, a cousin with no filter and an unintentional knack for oversharing, unwittingly handed me the key to unraveling my mystery of exclusion. "Did you see how gorgeous the floral centerpieces were, Grace?" Karen's voice came through the phone, tinged with the excitement that only a wedding could bring. My silence must have spoken volumes. "Oh, right. You weren't there," she corrected herself, an awkward chuckle peppering her words. I could picture her at home, tape boxes still unpacked from her move back to town, oblivious to the storm she had just unleashed. "Who all went?" I asked casually, masking my intrigue under a veil of nonchalance. She began to list names, one after the other. Each drop added weight to a growing void within. My absence had not gone unnoticed, nor had it been expected. Everyone else was there. For the first time, I verbalized my doubts to Karen, hinting maybe there had been a confusion, some mix-up causing me to be left out. The words stumbled out, softer than intended, but the cracks were real now, not imagined. Karen's pause was enough. "But Linda said you couldn't make it." She mentioned something about parent-teacher meetings that weekend, she recalled, her voice laced with confusion. Had I been robbed of my presence by mere fiction? I reached for the meticulously maintained school calendar on my phone. Dates, tasks, appointments, all carefully logged and color-coded. There was no conflict listed over the dates in question. Just blank spaces meant for family, white without the swirl of occupation marking them otherwise. The disbelief was bitter, like warm tea spiked with too much lemon. Linda had painted me invisible, a ghost in the echoes of my family's present despite physically occupying the same town, the same breaths, the same potential moments. That night, the gnawing of betrayal gnawed stronger than ever. I stayed up late sifting through the snapshot of memories I'd kept over the past year, piecing together inconsistencies and searching for patterns. I combed through emails, text messages, any traces left behind, trying to find where the misfires began, where communication went awry, or worse, manipulated. The following week, at the family-owned restaurant, where Linda's circle of influence held the strongest, I quietly observed. The hustle of staff folding napkins, the clatter of dishes cleaned and stacked in anticipation for another event. These were ordinary activities, yet they looked like those in a theater preparing for a production I'd missed the cue card for. A receipt, discarded and nearly missed, flitted from under the counter. I crouched to catch it, enduring a glance from Linda that I'd attribute to curious disappointment rather than shared joy. The receipt bore an invoice for cakes, baked for the wedding now reduced to pixelated reality through Karen's earlier description. A physical reminder of the celebration where my presence was made redundant by alleged scheduling conflicts. I didn't confront Linda then. I simply continued my lunch, pretending interest in the newspaper on hand while brainstorming my next move. Could this too be filed alongside many miscommunications? Or was it planned with precise execution, designed to spare me while tethering someone else closer? Alex, my protector in the shadows, noticed the change in my demeanor. "Grace, there's a pattern here," he said over dinner that weekend. He expressed how odd it was that I always seemed to have an excuse not to attend. Ironically enough, my absence had more consistency than real attendance. His words mirrored my unvoiced thoughts out loud. It wasn't just about being left out anymore. It felt targeted, a deliberate orchestration of absence from the moments meant to be shared. Alex's acknowledgement fueled the burgeoning quest for truths, one I now knew I wouldn't and couldn't undertake alone. It was time to thread together the whispers, the shadows, and past misgivings. I needed to confirm the betrayal that was beginning to seep through the once seamless facade of family unity. This waking suspicion wouldn't rest until it had transformed into confronted clarity. The weeks following the wedding revelation were illuminating, in the ominous way that flicking on a light can unmask dust in a long-ignored corner. I found myself delving deeper into the fabrications, little constructs that had skillfully altered my reality without my consent. Each instance seemed minor, but together they painted a more sinister picture. I was meant to attend Aunt Margaret's 60th birthday celebration next, a meaningless RSVP that spiraled into another brick in my unfolding narrative. My calendar showed it as a clear Sunday, yet the phone couldn't prove what informed the casual declaration. Grace couldn't make it because she was feeling under the weather. Spoken aloud, it sounds trivial, just another small life detail. But small details were emerging as recurring players in Linda's game. My absence was expected at moments lovingly captured in family albums while I naively planned around responsible roles at work. I was the ghost of my own life events, forever lingering in spaces I'd mentally committed to but physically missed, stock images in place where my lived ones should have been. Through digital trails and orchestrated conversations, more pieces fell into place. A text message thread shared unwittingly by another cousin became an unexpected orchestral note to the story. In it, Linda reassured another family member of my absence at an entirely unrelated but similarly ignored gathering, comfortably asserting that once again, I had work commitments. The familiarity in her phrasing suggested confidence in the web she spun and her perceived knowledge of what mattered in my life. You always know best, don't you? I still fielded my responsibilities courageously at school, the children grounding me in an unshakable routine. However, the quiet solace they offered underscored the burgeoning chasm of familial separation Linda had successfully orchestrated. My duties, this real responsibility, anchored me when everything else felt adrift on a sea of manipulations and unseen orchestrations. I faced a turning point when an email landed in my inbox by error, or by intentional mishap, perhaps containing an itinerary for Uncle Pete's retirement party. It detailed every planned moment, each minute accounted for, save for two conspicuous omissions: acknowledgement of me and any invitation sent to confirm my presence. This indicated premeditated intentions rather than mere oversight. I sat staring at the screen, its glow dimming against the evening sun setting low on the horizon. Was it possible that the mother I valued so deeply measured the value of my absence against the presence of banal excuses? What did it mean to be systematically excluded from the tapestry of family for which I volunteered so frequently? I pondered long. Alex resurfaced during this crucial juncture, sensing unease without needing explanation. "What's weighing on you?" he asked, every word soaked in the empathy reserved for confidants. I hesitated only briefly. This was where I spun my confusion into a cohesive summary of Linda's constructed absences, where I stitched together emails, receipts, and schedules once adhered to and now torn. He listened intently, nodding at intervals, each nod a promise of solidarity, his very presence reinforcing intention. We spent the afternoon strategizing, underlining inconsistencies, and determining how we might counteract the narrative Linda had worked diligently to create. In quiet determination, Alex revealed knowledge of other moments my absence was explained away with ease that bespoke preparation, subtle exclusions, unexpected reversals of gatherings, all fresh with half-hidden suggestions of my unavailability. His integral understanding of familial cadence had become a lifeline to my recaptured narrative. If this is hitting close to home, subscribe, because the next part is where everything changes. I whispered into the void of my memory, knowing things this dramatic lend themselves to addressed confrontation. Following that pivotal conversation, Karen's wedding continued to loom consequentially near. It was the site of my key discovering, the moment where realization solidified into truth. As we busied ourselves with plans, Alex subtly initiated a campaign, planting echoes of upcoming plans and events into conversations layered with clever insinuations, plans I found myself invited to despite Linda's orchestration. A housewarming party for a distant relative was next, casually mentioned amidst family chatter on social media platforms. This time, I waited to see if Linda might reach out. When silence remained a clear response, I circumvented her usual machinations through those aware of my definitive absence. The plan was crucial, making sure I had specific knowledge long before Linda could forge her version of truth. When the event was live, instead of enduring a well-placed excuse, my deception was met with genuine surprise when my presence was heralded. Caught in the web of her undoing, Linda was left grappling awkward silence, pushing back against her proclaimed omniscience. Each planned excuse snapped back with increasing weight, leading to subtle shifts in perception among our dichotomous circles. Then came Karen, unwittingly acting as truth-teller. Her wedding had suggested my awareness toward the discrepancies, but her broader persuasions now took hold. Through her candid and outspoken nature, Linda's tactics of exclusion had been revealed in circles I had yet to penetrate fully. Her presence, outspoken and filled with candor, asked the questions needing to be asked in moments away from contemporary family metatheater. Witnessing Linda reduced to veiled frustration underscored the weight of my transformation from ignorance to informed. Throughout the ensuing weeks, what was once isolating had morphed into what needed unseating, an expiration date to her careful curation that I'd once called unconditional love. I could hardly comprehend how I got here, amidst spirals of uncertainty and reconstruction, and from where I had begun almost a year ago now. But this was how betrayal often functioned, creeping softly until its pervasiveness quickened, needing whispered, loyal validation. My time had come for the next stage. With the escalation clearly mapped, the time had come to prepare my retort to Linda's calculated web. It wasn't about confrontation for the sake of conflict, but unveiling the truth so long hidden behind her meticulously maintained facade. The actions taken had to be deliberate and quietly reinforcing, ensuring that the truth would reverberate through the family without the need for grand displays or heated exchanges. Alex played his role impeccably as the protector. Together, we began by piecing together a timeline of events, the gatherings, birthdays, weddings, and parties from which I had been excluded. His methodical nature served us well as we compiled dates, receipts, messages, and any tangible pieces cradling the twisted reality Linda presented. He suggested keeping everything in a centralized folder, one with detailed notes beside each instance documenting what I knew versus the tales Linda spun. Then we delved deeper. I scoured my social media conversations and invitations, uncovering additional instances that had slipped through cracks in memory but marked key periods of absence. Each misstep on her part, each falsehood, further emboldened my resolve to rectify the familiar ties previously severed by deception. Simultaneously, Alex began to share his own voice, his observations as an indirect witness to my silent exclusion. He reached out to other family members with thought-provoking, conversational tidbits that danced on the edges of Linda's narratives, carefully outlining my presence in ways previously undermined. As I coordinated with Alex, Karen emerged as the unexpected truth-teller. She had no intent of uncovering familial rifts, but her keen nature played its part perfectly. Unbeknownst to Linda, and quite unintentionally, Karen forwarded a message chain that had originally omitted my name, addressing the gap with sincerity and urging transparency to keep future records straight. Her actions? A small ripple carrying implications deeper than anyone anticipated, perception slowly twisting towards the truth that was mine. Through this quiet symphony of gathering allies and amassing evidence, the case we built was solidifying. Linda's influence within the family, previously indisputable, began to appear brittle under the spotlight gradually cast by Alex and Karen's combined efforts. We stayed diligent with our preparation, never rushing a move that might preemptively unravel what was quietly and competently building around her orchestrated reality. I felt a mixture of apprehensive relief with each step we took toward exposing the truth. Alex's comforting confidence buoyed my resolve as we consolidated our findings into an indisputable narrative of omission. Pages of neatly printed evidence detailed the dismissal I'd felt over the preceding year, the apparent digressions marking void spaces in familial moments where my presence should have tied gaps tighter against dissipating family unity. My silence during Linda's manipulations, long agreed to in part due to trusting her intentions, now served a dual purpose. It fostered her sense of security and control while fortifying my consequent reveal with unyielding tenacity. Carefully constructed and unhurried, the plan was crystallizing into something that, once activated, left no room for plausible denial or dismissive rebukes. My life was no longer an accessory removed at whim from the familial scrapbook's dappled memories. It was the vibrant portrait missing amidst the clippings of carefully blurred reality. Linda herself remained unaware of the plans afoot. Her orchestrated gatherings continued in her meticulously controlled fashion, but this time I participated with insight, observing closely rather than engaging directly. With each momentary hesitation displayed, daydreams of unveiling the missing pieces looped like a carefully penned symphony. At one such dinner, as she layered future plans encased in optimism, her obliviousness was interrupted when I raised a seemingly innocuous point. She paused, unsure, a quiet moment in which our usual dynamic curled against possibility. If she noticed my newfound determination, her reaction lay hidden behind politely feigned ignorance. In this covert manner, several weeks slipped past, during which the pieces lifted quietly into motion behind shadows adorning narrated realities. Testaments from other family members contributed to unraveling her orchestrations, discreet conversations held beyond her knowing gaze, each quietly tilting scales to tip the momentum. As plans steadily approached revelation, each step placed before us underscored the readiness felt, a profound calm tempered only by the weight of dreams enabling tomorrow's grace. It was time to hand our story deliberate to its crescendo, held in trust by shadows whose movements were timed for the precise moment I'd become whole within absent memories. The familial dinner Linda had so meticulously planned was destined for an unexpected turn, one she hadn't accounted for in her arrangement of the evening's shows. This time, it was a reunion meant to celebrate family, complete with all the usual colorful flourishes of nostalgia. But for me, it was the setting where everything would finally come to light. The atmosphere in the family-owned restaurant buzzed with the familiar hum of conversations and clinking glasses. I felt an uncharacteristic calmness settle over me, a steadiness born from months of preparation. Beside me, Alex quietly nodded, reaffirming our joint resolve. We knew everything depended on presenting the truth clearly and unequivocally. Linda's aura of control began to subtly waver when she spotted the folder I held, a tangible symbolization of the truths about to redefine her narrative. As dinner unfolded, I waited carefully, choosing the moment when Linda took center stage, speaking with her usual practiced ease about upcoming holidays and plans. It was then that I calmly spoke up. Linda, I think we need to address something important tonight. The unexpected interjection drew the room's attention, while Linda's expression faltered, ever so subtly. Her smile strained, she attempted to deflect. Can it wait, Grace? We're all here to enjoy ourselves this evening. The familiar tactic, skillful and dismissive, hoped to reroute the discussion back on track. But I was fortified, strategic reinforcement resting invisibly behind the seatbacks of those who bore witness beside me. No, it really can't, I continued, my voice unwavering, providing a stark contrast to the sudden uncertainty in hers. I laid out the folder, each page a testament to the disconnects and untruths I'd been living through. The room stilled into silence, eyes glancing between mother and daughter, unsure yet engaged. I began methodically, pulling instances of orchestrated absences and sharing them, revealing receipts, forwarded messages, screenshots, all evidence of the discrepancy Linda weaved between our truths. Each new piece of evidence layered upon the next with unstoppable clarity, creating a narrative that demanded acknowledgement. I gave voice to the year's worth of miscommunications and excused absences. You see, these scheduling conflicts didn't exist, I pointed out, matching specific gatherings, dates, and, ultimately, connections that were engineered to remain invisible or unobtainable through circumstantial barriers designed by her hands alone. As I relayed accounts of omissions, the revelations struck at Linda's curated illusions, shattering perceptions built on exclusion. I witnessed her calculating precision give way to visible unsteadiness. Her attempt at denial faltered under the collective gazes of family members, participants rewritten as unknowing endorsers within her script. Beside me, Alex lent silent strength, his presence reinforcing what I'd laid bare, assuring unwillingness to bow beneath the weight of challenge. Across the table, Karen's recognition of events as previously shared by her became another undeniable verification, transformed through fortuitous circumstance. The shield that once protected her eroded visibly, exposing a vulnerability she hadn't anticipated. Her voice cut through mine momentarily, a desperate attempt to reclaim narrative control. "Grace, you misunderstood. These weren't planned that way." Words betrayed by forced composure, an improvised argument seeking themes of justification where none now existed. Each denial now only underscored precisely what I conveyed with understated certainty, her attempts to defer or redirect twining instead into transparent filaments as truth revealed their hollowness. "You always know best, don't you?" I echoed, returning her words within an altered paradigm, one where assurances of familial solidarity were recast as empty currency. Her unraveling was punctuated not by fervent responses, but by the quiet understanding visible in gathered relatives' eyes. A profound shift in dynamic had occurred within those terse few words and carefully constructed dismantling. Without raised voices or dramatic proclamations, the essence of her influence eroded, rewritten with authentic truths binding harmoniously where distrust had threatened. In this crescendoed climax, resolution emerged as quietly as it was definitive, a stew warmed over, melding natural flavors into complexity that only truth can sustain. Her reach, once spans distant in its orchestrated proficiency, diminished visibly across communal ties reknit before me. As quiet filled the room, the unspoken understanding signaled the shift in paradigm, reignited conviction carried hidden and held silently beneath purpose. As the initial shockwaves of the confrontation settled, the realization of the new dynamics set in. Linda's once formidable influence over family decisions began to dissolve like morning mist. In the days following that revelatory evening, the family, now more aware, began to view her actions under this fresh, unveiled light. The gatherings continued, but the atmospheres had subtly shifted. There were less of the invisible boundaries Linda had maintained through silent manipulations. Her pervasive influence was now seen through the lens of informed narrative, not misconstrued loyalties. She no longer chaired the decision-making, her voice quieter, lacking the unquestioned command it once held. Without need of open confrontation, her space had diminished, a consequence crafted in revelation. Alex, steadfast and supportive through the ordeal, ensured our truth remained respected. His quiet diligence and unspoken promise to uphold my presence paid off beautifully. He became an unacknowledged hero in this tale, quietly steering many of the familial gatherings to better incorporate all voices truly. Karen, the inadvertent truth-teller, continued to share stories as though nothing extraordinary had shattered Linda's facade. Her spirited nature and inadvertent push towards honesty began building new pathways within the family connections, leading gently towards more transparent communication. As for me, the absence of mistrust was a balm. I found my place gradually reinstated into the moments I once dearly cherished. Invitations were now infused with palpable warmth rather than begrudging tolerance, each event reaffirming my presence both physically and emotionally. The love I'd always hoped to receive returned with an earnest sincerity, untainted by manipulation. I began discovering joy in regularity, ordinary Tuesday evenings spent wading through favorite paperbacks or quiet companionship with family meals where stories were shared. My evenings, once echoing absence, flourished now with laughter accompanying new familial patterns etched in authentic narrative. The past silence melted before tender facets that nurtured the future. And Linda? Well, she learned to exist differently, her previous hub centrality diluted amidst harmony, vestiges confined now to measured tendrils of involvement. The absence of resentment towards her no longer burdened familiar gatherings, as reinstated balance blossomed organically amidst conversations and smiles. The phrase, "you always know best, don't you?" lingers, but it no longer wields painful reminders. Rather, it serves as testament to growth, an enduring echo of sincerity's victorious reclamation from absent presumption. It left footprints gently reminding us all of the truth's intrinsic value, shaping shared future tales without pretense. The story that Linda once controlled no longer played out on a stage managed by selective oversight, but thrived within outlines crafted through honest witness. Our family's harmony, once reluctantly tied to an unseen node, flourished under connections bound by genuine trust and newfound understanding.